So I have to say this because I've thought about this a lot, just now, right? I have to say this. The idea of Juneteenth, as I said in the last video, right? It preys on blacks becoming Islamic and those also who are, Islamic phobic. And it also preys on those who are anti-Semitic, but who are also of Jewish faith. This is what I have to say about that. If you completed the world cycle, if you have an origin story in Jesus, right? It's in the Bible. It says Jesus was bronze, bronze, was it bronze skin? Fire in his eyes, woolly hair. When you see that, right? The image you're looking at, right? The mistake that was made in his execution, it's not supposed to happen again. And this is what I'm saying, like, where people who are becoming Hanifis, or they're becoming Scientologists, or they're becoming Quranists, or they're becoming Muslims, right? This is what you have to understand about that, right? Is that you can't dismiss the story of Jesus. You can't dismiss Christians. That's why I don't understand why the argument even occurs between Christians and Muslims. You can't side what happened to Jesus, because when you look at his faith and you look at his bloodline, right? The covenant he set forth, right? Doctrine, the church, it protects the people who today modernly call themselves Baptists, modernly call themselves American Indians, it protects them. But this is also what I see is that, we shouldn't look at those who become Muslim. And I think Muslims shouldn't look at themselves as this way neither. Having something negative to say about Christians, or posing as someone who really follows the faith of Prophet Muhammad. That's where it all gets combobulated, right? Because if you're before a judge, right, and you say you're Muslim, right, you're basically saying you're responsible for all that had happened, after 1492, the trafficking of humans. You're basically saying that. Let me pause for a second and let you think about that. You're basically saying you're responsible for what happened to the trafficking of humans between the waterways of the Mali Empire, the Benin Empire, the Kushite Empire, the Mississippian Empire, the Floridian Empire, the Quebec Empire, the New York Empire. You're basically saying you're responsible for that. This is where we see ourselves today, right now. Right now. Christians can't say, ideally, right? They can't say they're responsible for what Muslims did. It wasn't Christians who did wrong, right? It was the Catholic Church, they were trying to defend people who had been trafficked by Muslims. You see what I mean? And all Muslims weren't, bad neither. And all of them wasn't innocent. You see what I mean? So where do you find yourself in that attitude where you're responsible for something that your ancestor did, where you traffic humans? This is why I say it's not really about becoming Muslim or enjoying the faith of making salat or, enjoying Juma or, for Christians, right? Having a family reunion, having a Tapat faith, like Tupac, right? Having the Tapat faith or, celebrating the risen of the dead, where you have a church meeting every Sunday to, inquire about, who's going to be a procession off. You see I saw this all the time in Chicago, funerals. I never saw them when I moved to Michigan. I never saw funerals, right? That was weird to me. But I think about that, like you get in front of a judge and you wear a crescent and moon, you basically spitting in his face. You know what I mean? You're basically spitting in his face to say you're a Moorish American, right? To carry that political thing, that political thought, that says a lot. I hope you can protect that omen. Great peace, Yakoki.